wealth and this magnificent view.
Couldn't agree more.
May our kingdoms prosper as beautifully as the stars.
John chapter 14. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also.
Because see, we're going to have these different nations in slavery, not only on the earth, but also on other planets. That's the glory of the kingdom. We're going to have servants on other planets. We're going to colonize other planets. All right? We're going to expand. You think about this truth, you think about the gospel, you think about the plan of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Hey, you got that one song by Drake, God's plan. When you think about God's plan, it's going to take place on the earth. There's really a blueprint for what's going to happen all throughout the entire universe. For all throughout the entire universe. What we're doing is a part of a blueprint. You know, like this truth is a friend, and it's going to branch out. It's going to expand all throughout the universe, man. To distant galaxies, you know. So don't be surprised, you know, you brother, the hopeful elect, the Lord give you your own galaxy or your own planet, own planets, and you colonize them, and you implement the laws, statutes, and commandments on them, and you're going to have servants on these planets. All right?
John chapter 14. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also.
Wealth and this magnificent view.
Couldn't agree more.
May our kingdoms prosper as beautifully as the stars.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Kakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to our younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful lake out there, pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners, whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. All right. And what I want to get into today, you know, is a lesson entitled Not a Prophet, but a Contrarian. Okay. And this lesson, you know, is inspired by, you know, the latest, you know, dealing with, you know, Jake, you know, on the comment board, you know, these Genesis guys. All right. Digging her car on the side. And, at the end of the day, you know, at this point, you know, Jake is just here, you know, to argue, you know, their sole purpose, okay, of, you know, hitting the record button, okay, is for the sake, okay, of an argument, of strife, all right, dealing with these guys from Genesis, which we know, you know, they have garnered an audience, you know, based off debating, you know, so strife, okay, and argument and debating, okay, is the foundation of their audience. Okay. So in order to keep their audience satisfied, all right, the motivation, all right, the inspiration for these guys to hit the record button is to be contrary, okay, to anything. Okay. Any angle they can find, you know, make it sound right, because when it comes to a debate, You know, a debate is not about being right. It's about sounding right in front of an audience. Okay. And these guys have took on, okay, that their teaching style, okay, of sounding right. Okay. And they're all over the place with the doctrine. You know, and there's no way that you're following those men and you could be serious about the scriptures. Okay. Because what we're seeing, you know, these men, okay, like I say, they have garnered an audience off strife and debate, and now they just have to please their audience, keep their audience, okay, satisfied. All right, because that's their lifestyle. You know, that's how they eat. You know, filthy lucre. Okay, so I want to get some precepts, get a couple definitions, and then go into a little history. All right, so dealing with uh, what we got now. Let me see. Let's go here. So I've been reading in the A&P Bible. You know, it got a few, few gems in it. You know, a few different precepts. But what the Lord has done in these times, when you read Jeremiah 3:15, it says, "Then in the final time, the time that we in now, okay, I will give you spiritual shepherds after my own heart." All right, and there's no doubt. You know, they're speaking of the apostles and elders, okay, of today on GMS. Okay, which they learned from their elders, you know, stemming down from Elder Albert Bivens on down. Okay, the men under Elder Albert Bivens, okay, trickling down to our apostles and elders today. Well, the Lord has fulfilled this in this final time and given us spiritual shepherds, spiritual pastors, leaders. Okay, and see, the more, we come into the clutch, all right, the more, we should be appreciative of the serious minded, okay, balanced leadership that the Heavenly Father has set up amongst those men, okay, and the men that's under them, the head bishops and, elders, okay, and different camps that's set up, the structure that's set up. You see, that's going to be appreciated more and more, all right, as the structure of this society is broken down, okay, because that's going to be a thing of value in the times to come in structure. All right, and our apostles and elders, they always taught structure. Okay, they never push confusion. Okay, they never seek the limelight. Okay, or to be some type of celebrity. They kept it strictly about the doctrine and about Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay, and it says, "Who will feed you with knowledge and true understanding." Okay, and that's the motivation behind the true prophets, is to feed our people with knowledge and understanding. Okay, because that's what we lacked. You see, we should have had enough confusion in Babylon. We should have had enough of vain strife and, arguing and going back and forth and debating and, being emotional. We should have had enough of that in Babylon. Now it's time to be rooted in true understanding. Okay, but you have, certain men, which that's part of prophecy. Okay, their sole purpose of hitting the record button is for strife. That's how they make their living now. Jake has made their living, okay, off of clout chasing, okay, some type of controversy. You see, this is how men that call themselves teachers and leaders in Israel, they make their living off, all right, the drama, the soap opera. Okay, if this was them, the truth would be a reality show, man. Okay, but the Wali Al Bashim Al Shai for sound, spiritual, serious minded leadership, man. From the apostles on down, all throughout, the beloved, camps, with GMS and the sincere affiliates as well. Okay, so let's go here to the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. All right, this is an A&P as well. It said all scripture, okay, it says the most high breathed, all right, given by divine inspiration, okay, and it's profitable for instruction, for conviction of sin, which is reproof, Okay, which that's a part of the ministry. And see, reproof is not to destroy you or to put you out there just cause. No, for correction of error and restoration to obedience. Reproof and correction goes out for restoration to obedience. Okay, we don't just get off on rebuking, reproof and nah, man, it's for restoration to obedience. You see, it's about deliverance, man, salvation, man. We're not here to argue for argument's sake, man. Okay, we're not here to try to show, try to be prolific and have this, this new world premiere breakdown in that spirit, man. Nah, man, we're here to teach and build up a people that was lost, man, completely out of there. Okay, that's why I said what for training in righteousness, man. Okay, there's a lot to be done, with the believers that's coming into this thing fresh out of Babylon. Okay, being trained up in righteousness to come into an environment where it's like a nigga culture. Okay, that petty spirit of arguing like the nigga one about everything, just want to be contrary to everything. You see, it said learning to live in conformity to the Most High's will, both publicly and privately, behaving honorably with personal integrity and moral courage. Okay, so the ministry, okay, is about building the church up. All right, to you see, training the church in righteousness. Okay, building the church up for the day of Yahushua. Okay, equipping the church for what's ahead. Okay, and also, the day to day. That's why I said both publicly and privately. Instructions are going out on how to maneuver in our day to day, leading up into the time where, hey, we're finna be uncomfortable. Okay, and during that, and you see, so it's a lot, that the Lord has tasked the men of the Lord with. Okay, this is why we don't have the time for all this arguing about nothing, man. Okay, and you look at these guys arguing, like, what are they saying? Like Jake still hung up on marriageable age. Okay, the fact that it has to be addressed that John the Baptist was in the truth. It's like what? Okay, Apostle Paul, he condoned idolatry, man. Like, what is these niggas talking about, man? And then look at the time that we're in, okay, and you see what nigga minded, man. Okay, Jake does not take this seriously, man. Jake is just here. This is a money grab. This is a thing of clout. Okay, and Jake just wants to be a contrarian, man. Okay, and you keep reading, it says, so that the man of the Most High be complete and proficient, outfitted and thoroughly equipped for every good work. Okay, so the ministry is supposed to equip us with the tools needed, all right, to survive Babylon, man. Okay, to get victory over this beast system. Okay, the truth is equipping us with everything we need. Okay, but if you have, if you're teaching confusion, that defeat the whole purpose. Okay, all these random arguments, and see, these guys read the scriptures with the mindset of trying to find something to be contrary about. It's not with first edifying themselves and building themselves up and pouring into their spirit. All right. And then it's not about edifying the body, reading, okay, and getting points that can edify the body. Okay, these guys read the scriptures and research just to have an argument. Okay, this is what Jake is on, tripping. You see, in the clutch. You see? So let's go. I want to get that word, which when you get into it, it can be a good thing, but I want to focus on the latter part of this word, contrarian. Okay. So you go to this word, I asked it, what is a contrarian? Just a quick AI overview. It says a contrarian is a person who habitually takes an opposing stance to popular opinion, often driven by a desire to challenge the status quo or a skepticism of the mainstream. Now, we do this in righteousness when it comes to the status quo of this world, the popular opinion of this world. Okay. So there's a righteous aspect of being a contrarian, when it comes to us, all right, having an opposing stance against the popular opinion of this world. Okay. It said this can manifest as independent critical thinking that leads to innovation, but it can also stem, and this is what I want to focus on, but it can also stem from a need for attention for a rebellious attitude or a rebellious attitude. Okay, this can manifest as independent, critical thinking that leads to innovation, but it can also stem from a need for attention or a rebellious attitude, the need of attention or a rebellious attitude, man. And this is the driving force behind guys like Deacon Hassad, all right, or Deacon Hakah and Hassad, all right, the Genesis crew. Okay, this is their motivation, need for attention or just rebellious attitude. Okay, and that's why they intentionally, throw out madhouse doctrines. Okay, in the hopes of a response. Okay, and the responses be extremely edifying. You see, and that's one thing about it. There could be nothing done against the truth before. So if these men have this need for attention, this rebellion, okay, attitude, okay, edification is still going forth. Okay, it says some contrarians genuinely believe their opposing view leads to a better outcome, while others may simply enjoy causing social friction, man. And this is all they want. Okay, they thrive in the drama, like the nigga woman. Okay, they thrive in the messiness and the drama and the confusion. They thrive in it, the arguing. Okay, that's what they thrive in, man. Nothing to do with true building. Okay, in the spirit. Okay, so that's why you go here. Let's get this. All right, let's get this in the book of Philippians. We're still in the AMP. Matter of fact, before I get to Philippians, let's jump up to verse 13 here. All right, 2 Timothy 3 and 13 in the AMP, it said, but evil men and impostors will go on from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. And these guys are impostors, man. Okay, they're not prophets. That's why prophecy is not their main thing. Their main thing is controversy. Okay, their main thing is debate and strife. Okay, stirring up some type of drama. That's their thing. They're imposters, man. They can imitate the breakdowns and understanding, but that's not what they're about. Okay, and see, we coming into the time where the Lord gonna start making more examples, man. And you would think with the examples that have been made, Jacob, at least dialed down, but these niggas get worse because this prophecy. And Apostle Paul prophesied about these niggas, man. Okay. So let's go back, all right, to let's go to the book of Philippians. Let's get Philippians chapter 1. I started at 13. So this when Paul was in prison. He was in the palace, okay, of Caesar. So when you go into Philippians 1 and 13, it says, my imprisonment, all right, in the cause of Hamashiach has become common knowledge throughout the whole Praetorian Imperial Guard and to everyone else, okay, which the Praetorian Guard, all right, they were, the personal, guard, something like the Secret Service, okay, of the president today, so they had, a lot more power, but they're dynamic, all right. And it says, because of my change, seeing that I am doing well and that the Most High is accomplishing great things, most of the brothers have renewed confidence in the Lord and have far more courage to speak the words of the Most High concerning salvation without fear of the consequences, seeing that the Most High can work his good in all circumstances. So Paul's imprisonment, was emboldened, all right, the churches, man, to go harder. Okay, seeing that the Most High, all right, that the work that Apostle Paul was still able to do in his situation, okay, that gave them, a revived spirit to go harder, the churches, man. Okay, so it is true, all right, so it is true, or actually, all right, preaching Hamashiach out of envy and rivalry, okay, so you have men that are preaching out of envy and rivalry, man, okay. And you can tell, that envy, that they want to be those top men in Israel. They want that. Okay. They've started this, this rivalry. They just got to be contrary. Okay. It said towards me, it says for no better reason than a competitive spirit of misguided ambition. Okay. Men just are ambitious to be seen, need for attention, need for clout. Okay, it said, but others out of goodwill and of a loyal spirit towards me. The latter preach Hamashiach out of love. All right, the true, sincere prophets, man. Okay, it said, because they know that I have been put here by the Most High on purpose for the defense of the gospel. So we're gonna always defend the gospel. Certain things have to be addressed. It's like you hear these niggas and like, oh, a lot of things, you let fall to the wayside. Certain things have to be addressed for the sake of the elect, man. Because we're set for the defense of the gospel. So certain things going to get addressed. And you niggas are always, in your feelings about the back and forth. Well, there was back and forth always, man. Okay? And see, them niggas going off, magnify who got the truth. If all you get from this back and forth is, oh, there y'all go. It's why y'all can't just be one and that's your brother. If you in this spirit, you don't know what's going on and you don't understand the truth. You don't got the truth. Okay, but someone that's a sincere believer, this should magnify, okay, these brothers got it. These men got it. Ain't no doubt about it. You see, when the Apostle Paul was in prison and the word was still going out and, certain, because you got to think, while he was in the palace, man, it was certain renowned men it was certain renowned jakes so the church is seeing this, by the Lord using Apostle Paul's, something that was, okay, that could have been negative, he turned it to a positive in the spirit, and believers, more believers start coming in and being intrigued by the word. Because of Apostle Paul's imprisonment, hey, they were turned up. They turned up in the spirit. Okay, but then you had niggas, they took this opportunity to spread madness, man. These opportunities, man. Guys like Deacon Hakai and Hassad, they're opportunists, man. Okay? Nothing to do with sincere edification. They're opportunists, man. All right, and the people that follow them, they are just here, okay, to be entertained. Okay, they get off on the gossip and you know, secrets and, you know, trying to expose expose this about this person and that nigga woman, all right, bitch shit, man. You know? But then you have the true believers that's sincere about this thing, man. You know, as we see prophecy happening, you know, we're emboldened to speak more about Yahushua. Okay? So you got and like I say, if all you get from what's happening is, you know, y'all should just come together, y'all. That's your brother. If that's all you get, this ain't for you, man. You know, and the Lord got you, all right, a fanboy to them niggas for your destruction, man. Okay? So you read this, it said, but the former, verse 17, but the former preach Hamashiach insincerely out of selfish ambition, just self-promotion, thinking they are causing me distress in my imprisonment. Okay, just selfish ambition and self-promotion. Okay, just like Deacon Hakah, you know, doing the video, he supposedly got into it with an Edomite. It looked fake. Okay, it looked like a Tubi scene, a Tubi fight scene. Okay, that was terrible. You know, and then the Deacon, yeah, that was terrible, man. You know, it was terrible. But at the end of the day, what was the point of it? To make it seem like you this tough guy, like you some a samurai. What you, you know, what was the point of it, man? And then he did it right after, you know, the former brother of GMS. He teach by himself now. I think it was out in Canada. Benjamin Knight. You know, he had this altercation with his Edomite, beat the brakes off of him. You know, and Deacon Hakah did a response, and then a few days later, coincidence, he done got into it with the Edomite. You know, but you know, it's just like what it's like, god damn, just like the nigga woman on social media need attention. That's the spirit them niggas coming in, man. The nigga woman that just press record to say any goddamn thing. Oh, to shit, for us to even for you to get my phone number, you gotta make 400,000. You know, just say that stupid shit just to get a reaction. That's the energy that the niggas come in, man. Okay. So let's go from there. So they're gripe now, which the beloved elder brother Yahshua Wamba, you know, he's been going in. Like I said, a lot of edification been coming out. You know I learned, you know, a lot of things dealing with Apostle Paul and dealing with the whole foods offered to idols. Okay. And matter of fact, this the brother written to save 144. This is the elder brother Yahshua Wamba channel. All right. So this video concerning ancient customs. All right, it's time for you Israelites to grow up. Okay, that was a good one. John the Baptist's last recorded message. That was a good one. Response: Genesis Israelites say Paul taught idolatry, and 1 Corinthians 8 and 10 as Apostle Paul condoned idol worship. So this is the edification that's come, you know, out of this back and forth. And see, this is the thing that sincere men, all right, you few sisters, man, that are sincere. Okay, this is the thing that's precious in these moments. More understanding of what we believe. Okay, this is what we tune into. All right, and plenty of other brothers, the apostles and elders did videos, and you know, it's so much, you know, to come out. But yeah, so as we let's go here. Let's deal with a little history. You know, so the brother went into it, you know, breaking it down about foods offered to idols, you know, which they need to come out. Then it's around that time of you got new believers and, you know, Thanksgiving, you know, so this is perfect in the spirit for this to come out. You know, I've been doing a lot of reading, you know, of Apostle Paul lately, you know, dealing with these series I've been doing, you know, the Spirit had me doing. And when you see how Apostle Paul was moving, you know, he was moving as a judge, okay, over the Israelite foreigners, you know, and he was setting things in order. You know, he was giving them formats to operate in, okay, that will put them in good standings with Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. Okay, so why in the hell would Apostle Paul teach that it's okay, all right, to participate in idolatry? Okay, but because you can throw a few precepts together and make it sound like that's what the Apostle Paul was on, all right, Jake just go for it. And that's irresponsible as hell. But the Lord got them niggas set up to be popular amongst, all right, you simple niggas and you simple women for the sake of judgment. Okay, now let's go here real quick. So, so I asked this, could Apostle Paul's role in overseeing the church is to chat be likened to how a judge would establish order? Does his background as a Pharisee play a role in his style of oversight? All right. So when you go into it, says yes, that's a very insightful comparison. The Apostle Paul's role in overseeing the early church can be likened, all right, in some ways to how a judge establishes order, especially when you look at how he reasoned, all right, interpreted doctrine and applied discipline, okay, within, all right, the community of the believers. You say Christian, but you know, it would Israelite foreigner, they Jake that follow Yahushua, Israelites that follow Yahushua, all right, that will grew up, okay, in the Greco-Roman customs. All right, so his background as a Pharisee was key to shaping this style. All right, it says, here's how the parallels work. Paul is an overseer, all right, of order, doctrinal authority, like a judge who interprets law. Paul interpreted and applied teachings of a Mashiach to a new and complex, all right, situations in the early church. And what Jake has to understand, these are letters written to real people, okay, in real life situations, okay? And in the spirit, he was writing to us, okay? These writings, you know, the way that the Apostle Paul established order, the Spirit was on him through Yahweh by Shema Shai, and he was establishing order. That applies to us today. Okay? So in the Spirit, he was writing to these, you know, in actuality, in real time, he was writing to real people, real believers that was going through real things in real time. See, Jake act like these are just random letters. Nah, he's writing to real. He's responding to real situations. Okay, the Apostle Paul would write letters to, you know, to follow up on the churches. Okay, and then there will be letters he would write and responding to reports that he will be getting. Okay, this happened real life, real time. Okay, so to try to nitpick that and say, oh, he taught idolatry, come on, man, god damn. But see, that those unreasonable men. Okay, it said like a judge who interprets law. Paul interpreted and applied the teaching of a Mashiach to a new and complex, all right, to new and complex situations in the early church, from disputes over circumcision to morale issues. All right, Paul often acted as a arbiter, okay, between factions. Examples, all right, the Jews, all right, versus the Israelite foreigner believers. You know, he would dispute, you know, certain things. You know, he was a mediator between, you know, particular, all right, you see, particular factions at the time, finding common ground as a judge would. Okay, he says his letters frequently contain judgments or rulings aimed at restoring unity and proper conduct. And that's another thing too, man. Men are about solutions and moving on to the next. Okay. Men are about solutions and moving on to the next, man. Not this goddamn nitpicking and petty and, you know, emotional, all in your emotions. Okay? I say, you niggas with this marriageable age, like, nigga, come on. What else can we say? What do you want us to, what you want us to say then, man? What we supposed to just say, oh, it was 23. Just throw it some random number. What do you want us? Come on, man. We past it. We way past it, man. Okay? Fools offered the idol. That's been, you know, but for the sake of edification, the Lord calls these things to go out. You know, but the spirit of a man is about finding a solution and moving on. That's that woman spirit that they get hung up on every little goddamn thing, man. And hold on to that shit and bring it back up, and you gotta have the same argument again. No, that's the nigga woman spirit, man. Okay, men get a solution, get a resolve, and move on. Okay, he said discipline and correction. He says he issued directives as rebukes, as in 1 Corinthians 5:1. All right, chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, and Galatians chapter 3. It says setting standards for behavior, much like a judge enforcing communal order. Okay, so Apostle Paul, okay, was likened to a judge over the churches, man. Okay, and his background as a Pharisee equipped him to do that efficiently, man. And that he was, all right, he grew up amongst the Greco-Roman culture, all right, in Sardis, I mean, in Taurus, okay. So he's seen both worlds, and he had a perspective to where he can bring a balanced judgment to the new converts, the Israelite foreigners, man. You see, and these niggas, that's wicked what them niggas is on, man, because they're acting as if the Most High just had Apostle Paul, okay, in his office, just going off. Okay, he said training in the law. It says as a Pharisee, Paul was deeply trained in the Hebrew scriptures and legal interpretation, Philippians 3:5, Acts 22:3. This background made him skilled at logical, all right, argumentation, okay, and applying principles to specific cases, trace evidence in his letters. You know, so Paul, you know, as a Pharisee, you know, they was tough. Like all the Pharisees wasn't wicked. When we speak of, that's why we say the wicked scribes and Pharisees. Okay, because all of them wasn't wicked. Fair, you had like Gamaliel, Paul's father was a Pharisee. Okay, you had Pharisees who sincerely, you know, was into the law for the sake of preserving the nation. Okay, because the Pharisees, there was a spinoff, okay, of the Maccabean revolt. Okay, there was a result of that. Okay, so the Pharisees were well versed in the law and interpreting the law and applying it to practical day-to-day living. Okay, so Apostle Paul was trained up, you know, likened to a judge, man. Because what, before you become a judge, you have to what, become a lawyer. Okay, an expert in the law and interpreting and applying it real time. Okay, it says now when you read it, now the Apostle Paul didn't bring the whole law to the church, but he understood order, he understood structure. Okay, so even within grace, he was setting up structure and order. You see, it says structured reasoning. His epistles often follow a rabbinic form of debate, stating a thesis, anticipating objections, and offering a reasoned response. See Romans, all right, especially. Okay, so that's why Apostle Paul letters, okay, when you read Romans, like when you go to Romans 9, okay, and he's, matter of fact, let's get there real quick. When you read Romans 9, The way the Apostle Paul writes. All right. When you read Romans 9, let's say in 13. Look at this in the KJV. When you read Romans 9 and 13, just to give an example. All right, it's Romans 9 and 13. It says, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with the Most High? The Most High forbid. So he makes a statement. All right. He brings out a precept. This is Malachi 1 and 4. All right. And then it's like he's arguing with himself. He said, what shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with the Most High? All right. Then he sets the judgment. The Most High forbid. Okay. And then he goes on. For he have said to Moses with another precept proving, okay, that there's no unrighteousness with the Most High. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So just as, someone was in the courtroom setting and they will bring forth the case, okay, and then they would, okay, deal with the case at hand, all right, and they will bring forth a statement, okay, and then they will combat their own statement, and then they would solve, okay, the argument, okay, with what? More statements, more facts. And that's how Apostle Paul will be writing to the churches. Okay. And there's a style that he got from being what? A expert, okay, and an interpreter, okay, of the law and applying it real time. You see, but he wasn't applying, let's say, the whole law to the churches, but he was setting up structure even within their grace, man. He was giving them some structure. You see, so when you go back to, matter of fact, it was like I thought I was saying Romans, Romans 9. Okay, so that was Romans 9 and 13 through 15 I had read. Okay, but when you go through that, that's what the Apostle Paul, okay, was doing. That was his style. Okay. You see, so when you go back to let's go back to the chat. All right, it says let's read it again. It says structure reasoning. It says his epistles often follow a rabbinic form of debate, stating a thesis, anticipating objections, and offering a reasoned response. See Romans especially, and we just got that example out of Romans. It says concern for purity and order. Pharisees value purity, discipline, and proper order in community life. Paul carries, Paul carries that same concern into the church through his though he reinterprets it through grace. Okay, read that again. Said Paul carries the same concern into the church, which is purity, discipline, and proper order in community life. Okay, so said Paul carries the same concern into the church, though he reinterprets it through grace rather than the Mosaic law. 1 Corinthians 14:4, to let all things be done decently in order. All right, 1:4. All right, it says while Paul's methods resembled judicial oversight, his ultimate authority derived from apostolic calling and spiritual discernment, not from an institutional position. His goal, wasn't mere legal order, but spiritual maturity, okay, and unity in Hamashiach. So yes, Paul's role mirrors that of a judge who establishes order and interprets law. His Pharisaic, background gave him the tools and mindset to do that effectively, but his approach was transformed, by his encounter with Hamashiach. He judged not according to the letter of the law, but through the lens of grace, and the leading of the Holy Spirit. And see, Jake not in the spirit. You see, Jake just not in the spirit, man. All right. And I say Jake just wants to be a contrarian. All right. And that's why the Apostle Paul, you know, was telling Timothy to stay away from them debating ass niggas, man. You know, when you go into all these precepts dealing with debate, okay, when you go here, all right, 2 Timothy 2:14, it says, scribe not about words to no profit, but shun profane and vain babblings, foolish and unlearned questions avoid. All right. It says, let me see, go down. It said, foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. Paul instructs Timothy to avoid fruitless debates and instead correct gently and patiently. Okay. Titus 3:9-10 said, but avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and scribes about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. He commands Titus to steer clear of debates about trivial and speculative issues that divide the church, man. And that's all these men are about, man. Okay? Not a prophet, but a contrarian. All right? And a contrarian in the bad sense. All right? That they're contrary for the need, okay, of attention, okay, and the spirit of rebellion. All right. So that's the point. You know, just want to touch into that Lord will, you know, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom.